Major funding for these broadcasts has been provided by grants from New York Community Bank, Capital One Bank, Eastern Consolidated, M&T Bank, Sterling National Bank, Meridian Capital Group, the Witkoff Organization, Customers Bank, Ariel Property Advisors, Chase Commercial Term Lending, Chase Mortgage Lending, Perfect Building Maintenance, Genova Burns. Additional funding has been provided by AKA Hotels, Corman Communities, AmTrust Title Insurance Company, AVR Realty Company, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, Bank Leumi USA, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Citizens Bank, Cohen Equities, Colliers International NYC, Collins Building Services, Connect One Bank, CPEX Real Estate Services, Dime Community Bank, Douglaston Development, Levine Builders, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Handro Properties, Handler Real Estate Organization, HAP Investments, Hodges Ward Elliott Inc., Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Center at Syracuse University, Kilroy Architectural Windows, Madison Realty Capital, Matone Group, Mercantile Bank, New Banks, Newmark Grubb Knight Frank, Optimum Window Manufacturing Corp., People's United Bank, Polsonelli, Rosewood Realty Services, SJP Properties, Stonehenge Partners, TD Bank, Terra CRG, the Knackle Group at Cushman & Wakefield, Maring Goff Family Foundation, the Moynihan Group, and these friends.
It's land. There's not much of it around. So how do you take the land and you build new properties and you get things zoned? I don't know the answer. So today I've assembled this group of leaders to provide their insight on land and what to do with land and changes that are taking place in New York City. We have the best person to talk about land, Purnima Kapoor, who is the executive director of the New York City Department of City Planning, Ross Moskowitz, who is a zoning expert with the firm of Strzok and Levan, Robert Knackle, who is the chairman of New York Investment Sales at Cushman & Wakefield, and last but not least, Lee Block, who is the senior vice president of development at Carmel Partners. So you're the one controlling the world. No, with everything at the city. What are the major programs today in land and zoning improvements are we talking about for the city?
So the city has a very extensive and a very aggressive program to promote both residential development where we can and commercial. We are a city, as you know, that's growing. Our population is growing, our job base is growing, and I think these are all fabulous problems to have for New York City at this point. So we are really focused on trying to find opportunities to provide housing options for all of our people, as well as provide job options in appropriate locations to grow them both.
I always say, we have 5 boroughs here.
Right.
The leading is the Midtown East zoning. What's the leading initiative in the other boroughs?
So we have a 5-borough housing plan, which is really not just providing housing, but looking at neighborhoods and looking at neighborhood revitalization across the 5 boroughs. And really what we are looking at is, while East Midtown is and will continue to be the prime business center in the city, the way our economy is changing, our economic base is changing. People are starting to find neighborhoods outside of Manhattan that are attractive both for job creation and for housing. And I think a diverse economy is great for New York City. So what we are then trying to do in response is to find opportunities for housing, particularly where transit is, where the infrastructure is, and also look at where there are opportunities for job growth that are not sort of the traditional fire industries necessarily, but the newer technology jobs, advertising, publishing, high-tech jobs, the tech triangle in Brooklyn, what is happening in Long Island City, even the South Bronx is getting jobs. So our work is focused on all those 5 boroughs. We have neighborhood revitalization plans in Brooklyn, at East New York that was adopted recently. We are looking at Gowanus, we are looking at Bushwick, we are looking at Jerome Avenue in the Bronx, we are looking at Bay Street in Staten Island along the North Shore. And we are looking at Long Island City Core in Queens. The city also has issued RFPs for certain properties along the waterfront in Queens. So we're looking all across. We are looking at North Brooklyn in what used to be the industrial area to see how we can set it up for new office growth that might be attractive, along with new manufacturing that is coming into the city. We're looking at downtown Brooklyn and Long Island City, both as opportunities for new commercial growth, as well as trying to get more affordable housing in there in particular.
Prior to the show, we were talking about this one great site. The city did approve One Vanderbilt, which is a huge property, and investors are happy about it. The banking line has already been approved, and also recently one of the sovereign wealth funds made a 27% equity investment in the deal.
Yeah, Michael, I think Midtown East is still not approved yet, so there hasn't been any transaction volume or any transactions that have occurred because of that. But I think that certainly will come. It looks like Midtown East will be passed. That will be a very exciting thing for Midtown. We'll produce 2 or 3 new buildings over the next 5 or 6 years.
The big question is, you get zoning approved. It takes time to then get to the next step. The zoning is fine, but then you have to, it's like putting a package together that you have to have. You have the zoning, you have to have the land, you have to find the property, you have to take the developers, you have to make the project look well, which is something that you're looking at. When you're looking today to buy property for development, and predominantly your development is residential, where do you think is the best opportunity, especially with the change of zonings?
Transit. We're very, very focused on transit. We always look for neighborhood amenities as well, restaurants, retail, cultural, but transit is the biggest driver, because that walk to the subway or whatever it is makes a huge difference in the rents that you can get.
Russ, you've been involved with the zoning since
many years.
For many years, I think you started with the Economic Development Authority, but where do you see, besides Midtown East zoning, and then I'm going to ask specifically about the Midtown East zoning, do you see the developers who are coming to you asking about changes where they're interested?
So there's really 2 things here, and I would echo what Poonam was saying. So first of all, government has a responsibility to sort of create a market, but the market, as Bob knows, then comes there. So you create the platforms, you create the zoning, but as you're right, when Lee and his company then decide to go there, they're not just going to build it, they will come. They have to make sure the infrastructure is there. So, in our office we have multiple projects in all the boroughs, but to your point and where Poonam was heading, I'm seeing much more activity now than I've ever seen in my practice in Queens and the Bronx. And in Queens in particular, the rezoning took place. They're looking at the Long Island City Core. But a lot of the RFPs now that are out on the street that the city is sponsoring, either through city planning or HPD or economic development, are all now taking advantage of those rezonings. And the competition, people like Lee and his competitors are now showing up at the door and competing for those prime real estate, because now the market has been established, the infrastructure is there, the transit is there, and the key is whether or not you're getting in at the beginning or you're coming in at the end.
You bring up the transit. In certain places where these zonings have been done, there isn't adequate transit. Let's take Astoria. The Astoria didn't have the transit. There is the need for, the ferry system, which the citywide ferry system, which starts in June, will help. There's no question about that. And the second thing is the question of this potential trolley that we're talking about.
The BQX.
BQX.
The BQX, which could be a reality, but nobody knows what the reality is. And I think also, since we've all been around long enough, the economic times sometimes change what's going on in zoning. You can have the finest zoning, but if there is not a great economic time, and the office market, I mean, today's office market is strong, but it's landlords are giving larger concessions today on office buildings than they were before. Residential, we agree, you need residential housing, and that's why you want to be in this market.
But take a step, if I could, Michael, take a step further, though, to the market point. So Long Island City was rezoned with an expectation of certain residential and commercial development. That was it during one type of market. But if you look at what the RFPs now that are coming out on the street, they're actually encouraging more of the live-work environment, more of the artist space, more of the community facility, because that's now going to sort of fill out the infrastructure of that community. So that's a change in the market. It wasn't necessarily thought of when Long Island City got rezoned and when Queens West was developed, but now what the market is saying, here's what else we need. We need the schools, we need the education, we need the amenities, things that Lee was talking about. So the RFPs now reflect a changing market.
Let's talk about Midtown zoning. Midtown zoning is supposed to take place from 39th Street and 2nd Avenue, I believe, to 54th Street or 55th Street and Park Avenue.
Approximately 57th Street.
57th Street.
And goes to Madison.
Goes to Madison, and then
goes to the east side of 3rd
Right.
Avenue, not,
And
you know.
what is the situation with the Landmarks property and what they can do with their zoning?
So what East Midtown rezoning is really geared at is looking at this really, really critical, part of Manhattan, which is really the epicenter of all of our jobs. We have 250,000 jobs there today. We have 10% of the city's tax base there today. Most of the buildings there are more than 70 years old. Many of them are older than that. So the idea really is to provide incentives to building owners and to developers there to try to come up with the new office product in an area that is very well served by mass transit. And the way we are trying to incentivize that is by also encouraging landmarks to actually be in play here. Many of the landmarks there today don't have the opportunity to really sell their unused rights in a broader area. So in this broad framework that we are putting together, we will allow the landmarks to sell their air rights on a much larger scale, basically within this district that is being created. But we also want to encourage infrastructure improvements. So while this area has, Metro North, and soon the East Side Access will come here and bring more transit and 10 or 15 subway lines, and the new sort of 2nd Avenue subway and its sort of impact on it is the whole area is one of the best served. We also know it's one of the most crowded. The subway lines tend to be crowded. And One Vanderbilt that you referred to that we did last year is 1.6 million square feet of new office development. But as part of that development, the developer is also putting $225 million worth of infrastructure improvements to Grand Central. And the net impact of that is going to be you're going to be able to move 1 additional train per hour on the Lexington line, which, for anyone who uses that line is huge. It's going to be a big, big difference. Our hope is in creating this broader framework to create the opportunity for more of that kind of infrastructure improvement to follow the development. So we've been working closely with the MTA, with DOT and others to actually identify specific infrastructure improvements that can then be coordinated with new development, so that as these new office buildings come into play, that the transit improvements can come in, public realm, our streets, sidewalks, open spaces can improve, so that it's not just sort of a new office production, it really is revitalizing the office district.
One Vanderbilt was an interesting situation because the buildings were very old, and also for a variety of reasons, they didn't have that many tenants in there. When you talk about another building, I mean, the Pfizer building, which is Pfizer is the sole tenant in the building, it's a different case. They can move out and look for additional space. But when you take a building that you have something else and you have multiple tenants, you may have the zoning approved, but it may take you a little long to get everything, to get all the parts together. And by the time that happens, we could be in the next recession too.
Well, Michael, that's one of the interesting things about the Midtown East rezoning is that the city's identified 16 projected sites, but of the 16, there are only 3 that could potentially be developed in the short term, Pfizer being one of them, which is why it's so important that the zoning district include the Pfizer block, because there are only 3 sites that are really teed up to be developed immediately. And I think the latitude that the landmark buildings have to transfer their air rights is good for the landmarks, it's good for the development. There are 31 landmark buildings in the district that have about 3.4 million feet associated with them. That supply, that tremendous supply, though, will create essentially a Dutch auction for the builders of buildings within the area. So they probably, for the first several years, those rights will trade at whatever the minimum threshold is that the city establishes. But that's a wonderful way to preserve those landmarks, give them the flexibility to transfer the air, and so developers will buy up the zoning by virtue of providing for transit improvement bonuses and by purchasing the landmark air rights.
As a developer, where would you like to see some new zoning?
Again, anything in and around transit, but I do think that the Long Island City kind of core is very important right now because you're getting so much development in the Court Square area, and I think that next logical expansion is that Long Island City core.
My only problem with the Long Island City area is right now the convenience there's no question, but if you take that subway at rush hour, I don't believe they can add another track, as we were talking about, on Lexington Avenue or the Long Island Railroad. That is the biggest problem that you have right now, that there isn't. The train system is wonderful, but it's slow. And you can't get people, and it's like going into Tokyo to push the people into the train. No, it's really that circumstance in Long Island City. And I hate to say, I feel that same attitude, what's going to happen one day at the Hudson Yards. Because you only have one train going over there, and when everybody has to leave at night, you're going to have the other situation.
Michael, if I could address the question about what zoning would you like to see done, I think we all agree that the city is in desperate need of more workforce housing, affordable housing. So something I'd like to see the city and state do is to lift the 12 FAR threshold as the maximum threshold for residential zoning. I think there are a lot of sites in the city that can accommodate more than the 12 FAR. The second thing the city should do is to create a bifurcation within residential FAR such that if you're building condominiums, you have one FAR associated with a piece of land, and if you're building rental housing, it's a larger amount of FAR that's associated. And the reason that's important is because land value gets so high that you can't afford to build rental. So even if people wanted to build rental, by default they have no option.
And I think part of what the city has done so well is that they did change the rules in certain markets on parking. You've reduced the parking requirement. So that changes over there. My big question is, and in different neighborhoods, is the mixed-use type of property that you see in other parts of the country that you truly don't see over here. What we do see, especially, if you take Lower Manhattan, today you see hotels and condominiums on top. You see that in a variety of places. But I haven't seen too many developments where you have the combination of all three.
It's very expensive. And within New York City, it's a block or two away. Most of the mixed use, I think, happens in those realms where they mix them together in a building is where they don't have them as adjacencies. Right. They're kind of creating the place. New York, the place exists. If if your choice is to have an office building and walk, 10 blocks to your apartment or get on the subway, that's fine. But when you're in a place where you're just establishing a place and you either have to get in a car or go downstairs to your office building, you want it right downstairs. And that's the big difference, and that's why you don't see it. In addition, the efficiency loss on a multi-core building, like where you have office, you have retail, and you have the residential, is a very big loss factor. and it becomes a problem. And you have to have, especially when you have to have minimum amounts of retail on the ground floor and access and everything like that, it becomes very difficult to program a small footprint building with multiple uses.
You brought up the subject of community facility space, which is really important. Would you try to explain to my audience what community facility space is?
What is community facility space?
And what if you have the community facility space, what does the developer gain in exchange for the community facility space?
So, I mean, community facility generally is a use that is serving the community, and zoning defines community facility as schools, daycare centers, houses of worship, certain kinds of medical facilities would qualify for that. And there isn't necessarily a trade with community facility. I think what we have tried to do, and I think as Ross is alluding to here, is as we are looking at neighborhoods where there is a lack of schools or there is a lack of daycare centers or things of that nature, when we put out new development frameworks, we are trying to encourage those uses as part of that development. So there are instances where we provide for schools on a private site and say to a developer, we will not count that towards your floor area if you provide the school. There are other areas where, you know, there are very few zoning districts that actually have a bonus for doing that. We are moving away from a bonus mechanism of that nature, really more towards looking at a neighborhood and its needs and then figuring out what makes, you know, the most sense in terms of seeking development on those.
Prior to the show, we were talking about the Sunnyside Yards. And, you know, people say the Sunnyside Yards are yards similar to what we had at the Hudson Yards. Right. The only question is that the Sunnyside Yards would cost you the same amount of money or more to build a platform over it, and you might not be able to be as successful as what Related did on the site. What do you see possibly in your own thoughts, because you have developers who are looking in Queens, as we were talking about Astoria, we're talking about Hunts Point, yep, and with the Sunnyside Yards.
And in fact, Northern Boulevard too,
right,
sort of where, you know, sort of what is the equivalent of Automobile Row, you know, where there's a series of dealerships with vast amount of spaces, and it's almost like suburban. And, you know, what happens there? And I know that city planning is looking at that as well. I mean, Sunnyside Yards is a challenge because, as you said, the cost of a platform on Hudson Yards is the cost of a platform on Sunnyside. It's the cost of a platform. So to justify that cost was the rents and the dollars and the real estate taxes that are generated by the Hudson Yards development. Sunnyside Yards is not going to yield those kind of numbers. Lee can tell us that. Bob can tell us that. So how do you develop it? I think it can be developed, but I think you have to be more realistic. You have to be less ambitious, candidly, on what's going to be there, and you're probably going to need more government subsidies, more incentives to allow it to happen.
Let's go to a different section of the town, because, you know, and it relates a little bit, you know, part of it is the Rockaways and Coney Island. Mm-hmm. As people say, you know, it's the same water as the Hamptons. It's over there. Now, each one has transportation, but there are transportation limits.
Mm-hmm.
Challenges or limitations over there. You know, you get off the train in Coney Island, which is 45 minutes to an hour, and then you're just over there, and you still have to do things. Do you see, and I believe Coney Island has been rezoned a number of years ago, and nothing is really happening over there.
Well, no, things are happening.
Right.
I think that what we did a rezoning in Coney Island, I think it was 2009 when that was adopted. And what that did for the first time was look at what used to be only the amusement district and was basically a 3-month operation, and said, how can we look at this for more of a mix of uses, to your points. You know, the amusements had shrunk to a small part of that area. There is need for housing there. As you say, this is a beachfront. This is, you know, the views to the Atlantic are fabulous. The views to Manhattan on the other side are fabulous. And next door in Brighton Beach, we are starting to see a much more vibrant market for housing. So when we did this rezoning, we created a framework that allowed amusements on one part of it, but also encouraged a mix of housing, retail, hotels, amusement-related uses. So the amusement piece of it has really become much better than it used to be. I think we had like 4.5 million people last year that visited it. Now you have Nathan's on the boardwalk, not just on the side. You have a lot more retail. There are 3 new amusement parks that have opened. So the summer piece of it is really picking up. We are starting to see some activity and some interest on the residential front. There was recently a new amphitheater that was built on sort of next to a historic Child's restaurant building, and our hope is that as these things sort of come into play, there is private interest. Taconic owns property there.
Mr. Kasmatidis, who will be my guest in the show next
Kasmatidis'
week.
property is a little bit further away from this area, but that we rezoned separately, and that is also a high-rise condominium project at the other end, closer to the western end of the peninsula. So we really think that there is potential there. You know, whenever you do a zoning framework, you're really not doing it for the next 2, 3, 5 years.
That's right. You know what I'm saying?
It's a long-term vision.
It's more for, I don't want to say generations, but it's a longer-term scale.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Michael, there are some infrastructure needs that Coney Island has also that have to get addressed before you're going to see a lot of very big-scale development happening there. But just to get back for a second to the point about mixed-use development, and Lee brought up a great point about how inefficient it can be to have multiple uses in one building. In the Hudson Yards, most of the zoning west of 9th Avenue requires a very significant commercial component, and you're allowed maybe 25% residential after you've built the commercial. The city will see that not many of those commercial components are going to be office if the land size is less than 10,000 square feet. So I think that based on all the office product that is under construction and planned for the area, to allow developers who own smaller sites to buy a conversion of that commercial FAR to residential, that could create a fund that would fund the unfunded third leg of the Hudson Boulevard, which would be great to see completed.
Look, I think, you know, in reality, the city planning, the legislators are working hard to help increase the area zoning capabilities. Because as I said at the onset of the show, we have a limited amount of land. The only other place that we had the opportunity was when we built the World Financial Center, and that was created because they took the dirt and the sand from where they built the World Trade Center. Right. We don't have that opportunities, and the city has great opportunities, but as Robert just said, you know, you need infrastructure, you need transportation, because the developers and the other people aren't going to look at it. And I think we have a great opportunity to see in many years to come. I'd like to thank Purina, Ross, Bob, Lee, and I'll see you next week.